The void was silent. Deep in the endless darkness of space, the colony ship Aurelia drifted slowly, battered and scarred from decades of survival. Its hull was pocked with scars from meteor storms, alien predators, and battles against the Deathworlders, a relentless species that hunted and destroyed any humans who dared settle on faraway planets. The ship's engines hummed weakly, barely holding the fragile structure together, but the crew moved with careful purpose, each day a fight to survive. Captain Mara Lynn stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the stars beyond the viewports. Every flicker of light was another reminder of how isolated they were. Their world had been abandoned for generations, a forgotten colony at the edge of human exploration. Mara could still remember the messages from Earth long ago, promising protection, promising help. But those promises had never arrived. Until now, a small console beeped, faint but insistent. A signal had appeared on the scanner. Mara's heart skipped a beat. She leaned forward, fingers trembling slightly as she tapped the controls. The display clarified, a faint pulsing beacon broadcasting the universal SOS pattern. Her breath caught in her throat. It's Earth, she whispered. The words were barely audible over the low hum of the ship. Around her the crew gathered, faces pale with shock and hope. Some of the younger members had only heard stories of Earth, of the planet where humanity had once thrived. But none had ever believed their call would be answered, and yet here it was, blinking in the darkness like a promise. Mara's voice grew firm, commanding now as she addressed her crew. They've heard us. Earth is coming. We are not alone anymore. A wave of emotion swept through the bridge. Relief, hope, fear, and joy collided in a mixture so strong, it made some of the crew stumble back from the console. Engineers wiped tears from their eyes. Soldiers gripped the rails as if holding on to life itself. The old despair that had shadowed the ship for decades began to lift, replaced by a cautious optimism that felt almost foreign after so many years of hiding. But even as hope blossomed, Mara knew the danger was far from over. The Deathworlders were hunters, patient and merciless. They had enslaved countless human colonies, leaving nothing but ruins behind. If the aliens learned that Earth had answered the call, the consequences could be catastrophic. Mara swallowed hard. There was no turning back now. The crew began preparing. Scouts checked weapons and engines. Communications officers strengthened their transmission signals. Even in the silence of deep space, a sense of urgency spread like wildfire. Everyone understood one truth. Survival was no longer just about hiding. It was about fighting, about reaching the light that promised rescue and vengeance alike. Mara walked through the corridors, passing sleeping quarters, hydroponic farms, and the makeshift medical bay. Each corner of the Aurelia carried the weight of human endurance. Children who had never seen Earth played quietly, unaware that their future might change in hours. Old veterans, battle-hardened and weary, tightened their grips on the ship's rails, their eyes reflecting a mixture of fear and hope. "Captain," Lieutenant Jarek said, approaching her in the central hall. His usually confident voice was soft, almost reverent. "The signal, it's strong enough for Earth to trace us now. They can find us. They will come." Mara nodded, her jaw tight. "Good, let them come. We've waited too long. Too many of our people have suffered. Too many have died. It's time we stopped running and made them see who we are." The Aurelia shifted slightly as the old engine struggled against the pull of a nearby asteroid belt. The crew worked silently, moving with efficiency born of years of survival. Every hand, every eye, every heartbeat counted. Mara returned to the bridge, her gaze fixed on the stars. She imagined Earth's fleet crossing the void, brilliant and unyielding, a wave of humanity rising to meet them. For decades, the crew had lived in the shadow of fear, believing the galaxy had forgotten them. Now hope was not just a dream, it was real. And yet Mara knew the universe would not wait politely for humans to feel safe. Somewhere beyond the distant stars, the Deathworlders were hunting, moving toward the signal that could betray the Aurelia. Mara clenched her fists and whispered to herself, a vow to the survivors who had placed their lives in her hands. We will not be taken. We will not be broken. Earth is coming and we will stand. As the signal pulsed steadily, cutting through the darkness like a heartbeat, the crew of the Aurelia felt a shift in their destiny. The long years of hiding, of fear, of despair, perhaps they were ending. Humanity, it seemed, had heard their call. And now, the galaxy would see what Deathworlders often forgot. Humans never give up, and when cornered, they fight with a strength that echoes across the stars. For the first time in decades, Mara allowed herself a smile. Somewhere out there, Earth was moving, and when it arrived, the Aurelia would no longer be a lonely colony drifting in silence. They would become the spark that lit a storm, and the galaxy would never forget the sound of humanity's roar. On Earth, the alarm had rung across every major command center. The SOS from the lost colony was more than just a signal. It was a plea, a heartbeat across light years that carried the hopes and fears of generations. Humans had long feared the Deathworlders, a race of relentless hunters, and many had assumed the colony was gone forever. But now the faint beacon told them the truth. Survivors still lived. General Alvarez stood in the main command room, a map of the stars glowing before him. His eyes scanned the display, filled with the positions of every fleet ship and station. Around him, officers and scientists worked frantically. "They are still alive," he said quietly, almost to himself. Then louder he addressed the room. "And they need us. Humanity does not leave its own behind." The words stirred something deep in everyone present. For years, humans had expanded into the stars, building colonies, trade routes, and research stations. But the memory of those who had vanished on Deathworlds, the families that had disappeared without a trace, weighed heavily on every mind. Now action was required. Hope demanded it. The preparations began immediately. Shipyards worked around the clock, producing warships, transports, and scouts. Engineers ran diagnostics on massive carriers, ensuring weapons, shields, and engines could withstand the long journey across the void. Pilots trained tirelessly, learning maneuvers that would counter the Deathworlders' known tactics. In the fleet command room, Admiral Kieran addressed his officers. "We are not just sending a rescue team," he said firmly. "We are sending humanity itself. Every ship, every soldier, every scientist aboard this fleet carries the strength and courage of our species. Remember this: the Deathworlders have hunted us for centuries. Now we will remind them that humans do not yield." The officers nodded, a quiet but fierce determination in their eyes. Engineers, strategists, and pilots alike felt the weight of their responsibility. The colony's signal was more than a call for help, it was a test. The galaxy had underestimated humanity before. They would not make that mistake again. Meanwhile, families of the fleet members watched their loved ones depart. Children waved from observation decks, tears streaking their faces, as parents embraced soldiers and pilots one last time. Older veterans, some who had fought previous Deathworlder skirmishes, shared quiet nods and clenched fists. Across every planet, humans understood the stakes. This was not just a rescue mission. This was humanity declaring that it would fight no matter the odds. As Earth's fleet moved into position, sensors picked up signs of the Deathworlders' patrols. Ships of black, jagged metal floated silently, scanning the void. The aliens' presence was a shadow, a reminder of what awaited the colony if humans failed. But humans had strength that no alien could measure: ingenuity, courage, and unity. Captain Mara Lynn on the Aurelia monitored the Earth fleet's approach. Her heart raced as the massive ships appeared on the horizon, glinting in the cold light of distant stars. Carriers, frigates, and warships moved with precision, a tide of humanity rising to meet them. The crew could hardly believe their eyes. For the first time in decades, they felt safe. Not invincible, never that, but seen. Not alone. "Look at them," Mara whispered to Lieutenant Jarek, her voice trembling with emotion. "Our people, they came. They never forgot us." Jarek nodded, pride and awe mingling in his gaze. "And now, we fight with them. Together. On the bridge of the lead Earth cruiser, Admiral Kieran observed the Aurelia through magnified sensors. "There they are," he said softly. "Our people, and we will not fail them." As Earth's fleet advanced, the distance between hope and danger shrank. Every officer, every crew member, felt the weight of what they were about to face. The Deathworlders would not surrender. They would hunt relentlessly, striking without mercy. Yet humanity was ready. Not just with weapons and ships, but with something far stronger. Unbroken will. The stars seemed to shimmer with anticipation as the fleets closed in. On the Aurelia, children pressed their faces to the observation windows, eyes wide with wonder and fear. Soldiers adjusted their armor and weapons, ready to defend their home once again, and Mara Lynn, standing tall on the bridge, felt something she had not felt in decades. Hope that burned as fiercely as the sun itself. "Earth is here," she said, her voice carrying across the bridge. "And with them we will survive. We will fight. We will show the Deathworlders that humanity never bends, never breaks, and never forgets." The first stars of the alien fleet glimmered faintly in the distance. The hunters were aware now. They sensed the signal. They would come for the colony and its rescuers. But humanity's fleet did not hesitate. Engines roared, weapons hummed, and determination burned in every heart. Somewhere deep in space, across light years of darkness, a storm was forming. And at the center of that storm was humanity, united, relentless, and ready to claim the galaxy as its own. The SOS had reached Earth, and now humanity would answer, not quietly, not timidly, but with fire, courage, and the unyielding roar of every human who had ever been hunted, abandoned, or forgotten. The void trembled with silent anticipation. For decades, the Aurelia had drifted in isolation, hiding from predators that saw humans as nothing more than prey. Now, distant lights appeared on the horizon, growing brighter with every passing hour. Earth's fleet was coming. Every crew, member on the Aurelia could feel it in their bones, a heartbeat that echoed hope and the promise of survival. Captain Mara Lynn stood on the bridge, eyes wide and unblinking as massive warships glimmered against the black canvas of space. Carriers, frigates, and battleships moved in perfect formation, engines glowing with the energy of human ingenuity. It was not just a fleet. It was a declaration, a wave of humanity surging across the stars to protect its own. The crew gathered behind her, unable to speak. Some whispered prayers, some simply stared, tears rolling down faces hardened by decades of hardship. Children who had never seen Earth's greatness pressed their small hands to the observation windows. "Are they really here?" one whispered. Mara smiled, a rare warmth breaking her stern demeanor. "They are," she said softly, "and they will not fail us." But the hope was not unchallenged. Far beyond the human fleet, a shadow darkened the stars. The Deathworlders had felt the tremor of Earth's response. Their hunting instincts flared, a cold, unrelenting force moving with precision and malice. Ships of jagged black metal appeared, gliding silently through the void, engines humming with deadly intent. Their formation was ruthless, designed to intimidate and crush. The galaxy seemed to dim under their presence. Mara's heart clenched. "They've come," she whispered. "They found us." Lieutenant Jarek gripped the rail beside her, his knuckles white. "Captain, what now?" "Now," Mara said, her voice firm. "We survive, and we fight." The first skirmish erupted without warning. Deathworlder fighters darted toward the Aurelia, plasma beams cutting through the darkness, tearing chunks from asteroids as collateral damage. Human scouts raced to intercept, weaving through enemy fire with skill that stunned even their own crew. Explosions lit the void, brief but brilliant, a violent dance of survival and defiance. Mara watched the battle unfold, her chest tight with both fear and pride. Every move of her crew, every maneuver of the Earth fleet, was a message. Humans do not yield. They had been hunted for centuries, but they had learned, adapted, and now they fought back with cunning and courage. On the Aurelia, soldiers loaded weapons, medical teams braced for casualties, and engineers rerouted power to reinforce shields. Every heartbeat was a reminder that survival demanded courage. Every glance at the distant human fleet filled them with renewed strength. They were not alone. They had never truly been alone. In the midst of chaos, young Cadet Lyra gripped the controls of a small fighter, her hands trembling. "For our home," she shouted as she launched toward a Deathworlder fighter dodging plasma fire. Her shot struck true, sending the alien ship spinning into a cloud of debris. Around her, other fighters joined the fray, their voices and actions a chorus of defiance. Mara felt tears sting her eyes. Humanity, fragile, flawed, and yet unstoppable, had arrived. They were the storm the Deathworlders had never anticipated, and for the first time in decades, the survivors of the Aurelia allowed themselves a moment to believe. Maybe they would make it. Maybe this was not the end. Still, the Deathworlders pressed forward. Their capital ships loomed, massive and menacing, their weapons charging in ominous silence. The stars seemed to darken further as they advanced, a reminder that hope alone was not enough. Humanity would need strategy, courage, and the unyielding will of every soul aboard the fleet. Captain Mara Lynn straightened, her hand resting firmly on the railing. "Focus," she commanded. "Protect the colony. Protect each other. Show them what humans are made of." The crew responded instantly, a wave of coordinated effort that pushed back fear with action. Every move, every shot, every command was a statement. Humans would not break. And as Earth's fleet fell into perfect formation around the Aurelia, a sense of unity filled the void. Humans and humans alone could accomplish what countless generations had feared impossible. Above the chaos, Mara allowed herself a deep breath. The journey had been long, the weight excruciating, but now, hope and fury combined in a single force. Humanity had answered the call, and the Deathworlders, for the first time in their long reign of terror, would meet resistance unlike any they had ever known. The stars, once darkened by fear and isolation, now blazed with human resolve. Every flash of light from Earth's fleet, every burst of weapons fire, was a promise. Humanity would protect its own. And in that moment, Mara knew that the battle, ahead no matter how deadly, was a fight they would face together as one. For the Aurelia, for the colony, and for Earth, humanity had arrived, and the Deathworlders were about to learn that the galaxy had underestimated the human spirit. The void exploded with fire and fury. The Deathworlders, relentless hunters of the galaxy, had descended on the colony with a single merciless purpose: to destroy. But humanity was ready. Earth's fleet and the Aurelia's defenders moved like a single organism, engines roaring, weapons firing, and shields flaring in a display of determination and courage. Captain Mara Lynn gripped the railing of the bridge as her eyes tracked every enemy ship. "Hold the line," she shouted, her voice cutting through the roar of alarms. "Protect the colony at all costs." Below her, soldiers and pilots worked in perfect unison. Human fighters weaved through the alien swarm, dodging plasma blasts and striking with precision. Explosions lit up the dark space like fireworks, each one a testament to the resilience of humans who refused to bow to fear. Lieutenant Jarek led a squadron of fast attack fighters, diving into the thick of the Deathworlder formation. "For the Aurelia!" he shouted, his voice filled with both rage and pride. His ship spun through enemy fire, targeting the alien engines with calculated shots. One by one, alien fighters were disabled, spiraling helplessly into the void. On the Aurelia, engineers rerouted power to reinforce shields, as debris from destroyed alien ships drifted past the hull. Medical teams prepared for casualties, but even in the chaos, the crew moved with determination. They had endured decades of isolation, alien hunting, and despair. Now they had the chance to fight back, and they would not waste it. Captain Mara's gaze fell on the Earth fleet, massive warships holding the front lines with unyielding strength. She felt a surge of pride. Humanity was more than survivors, they were warriors. Each ship, each pilot, each soldier embodied the unbroken spirit of a species that had been hunted across the stars and had refused to die. Amid the chaos, Cadet Lyra, barely 16, piloted a fighter with a mix of fear and determination. "I can do this," she whispered to herself, dodging enemy fire. She fired her weapons, taking down a Deathworlder fighter that had aimed directly at a civilian transport. Explosions rocked the void, but her resolve never wavered. Humanity had taught her well. Courage was born in the face of fear. The Deathworlders were surprised. They expected humans to flee, to scatter in terror. Instead, they met precision, coordination, and fury that shook their confidence. Alien formations broke apart under relentless human tactics. Fighters overwhelmed them with daring maneuvers, while the heavy cruisers of Earth's fleet delivered devastating strikes. "Keep pushing," Mara commanded, her voice steady despite the tension. "We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We are humanity." Even in the midst of fire and death, there were moments of hope. Crew members cheered as damaged human ships were saved by quick-thinking engineers. Pilots returned to their stations after near misses, adrenaline and determination driving them forward. The battle was brutal, but humanity's spirit burned brighter than any weapon the Deathworlders possessed. Lieutenant Jarek's squadron closed in on the alien capital ship. Its massive hull shimmered with dark energy, weapons charging for a devastating strike. "We take that ship down or we die trying," Jarek shouted. The squadron plunged into a daring assault, weaving between enemy fire, planting explosives and firing relentlessly. The capital ship shuddered, shields flickering under the assault. Captain Mara's hands tightened around the railing. She could feel the tension of every life aboard the Aurelia and in the fleet. The battle was far from over, but humanity had shown the galaxy a truth that no predator had expected. Humans were not just clever, they were fearless when protecting their own. Above the carnage, Mara whispered a vow. "We will not fall, not today, not ever." The Deathworlders, realizing the humans were not just fighting but dominating in parts of the battle, hesitated. Their confidence wavered as their fighters and cruisers fell under human tactics, precision, and determination. The hunters were learning something they had never understood. Humans never back down. Humans adapt. Humans fight with a fire that cannot be extinguished. Explosions lit the void as the first major victories were claimed. The colony remained intact, protected by the courage and sacrifice of both the Aurelia's crew and Earth's fleet. In the midst of chaos, a new emotion spread among the humans: belief. They could win. They could survive. And they could show the galaxy that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. Captain Mara Lynn stood tall on the bridge, her eyes reflecting the light of distant explosions. Around her, the crew felt a mix of fear, pride, and unshakable determination. Humanity had survived worse. Humanity had endured longer, and humanity had finally found a way to fight back. As the Deathworlders pulled back slightly, regrouping for another strike, Mara spoke softly, but with conviction that echoed in every heart aboard the Aurelia. "This is only the beginning. They will learn that humans do not run, humans do not break, and humans do not die quietly. We are here. We are ready." and we will fight until the stars themselves tremble. The void, once silent and foreboding, now roared with human defiance. Humanity had met the hunters head-on, and the galaxy would never forget the day the humans refused to be prey. The void of space was littered with wreckage. Smoke and twisted metal floated silently, a grim testament to the ferocity of the battle. Even as the humans celebrated small victories, the cost of survival pressed heavily on every heart aboard the Aurelia and the Earth fleet. Lives had been lost, and the weight of grief was sharp and unrelenting. Captain Mara Lynn walked the corridors of the Aurelia, passing rows of wounded crew members. Medics moved tirelessly, their hands steady but faces pale, patching up burns, broken bones, and deep cuts from the battle. Children clung to their parents, their eyes wide with fear and confusion. The human crew had learned long ago that survival was not only about strength, it was about endurance, about carrying the wounded, the weak, and the frightened through the storm. Mara stopped beside a young engineer, her hands shaking as she patched a damaged control panel. "Are you all right?" Mara asked gently. The engineer nodded, tears streaking her face. I can keep going, Captain." "I have to." Mara's chest tightened. She understood that drive. Every human aboard that ship had a reason to fight, and every reason was sacred. Every life mattered. Every sacrifice was a promise that they would not fail. In space, the battle continued. Earth's fleet pressed the Deathworlders back, exploiting weaknesses discovered during the first clash. Alien ships faltered under coordinated attacks, but the humans paid dearly for each victory. Explosions rocked ships and alarms blared endlessly. Engineers rerouted power to failing systems. Pilots risked everything to protect civilian transports, and soldiers held their positions even as enemy fire rained down. Lieutenant Jarek returned from a skirmish, his ship scarred and smoking. "We held them off, Captain," he reported, voice rough from strain. "But too many didn't make it." Mara nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. "I know," she said softly. "And we honor them by surviving, by continuing the fight. Every life we save now is for them." Amid the chaos, Cadet Lyra helped evacuate civilians from a damaged shuttle. She carried a child in her arms, dodging debris and enemy fire. "You're safe now," she whispered, her own voice trembling. She had seen friends fall, and yet she moved forward with courage that belied her age. Humanity had taught her well. Even in despair, hope must be defended. Back on the bridge, Mara observed Earth's fleet as it executed daring maneuvers, striking hard at the alien formation. Humans fought with precision, courage, and creativity that surprised the Deathworlders. The aliens had always relied on fear to dominate, but humans had transformed fear into determination. Every strike, every maneuver, every life risked was a statement. Humanity would not yield. Yet even as humans began to turn the tide, the cost was visible everywhere. Burned-out ships drifted silently, some with entire crews lost. Communication officers relayed messages from families who would never see their loved ones again. Grief hung thick in the air, but so did determination. Humans mourned, yes, but they continued to fight, driven by the understanding that every second gained, every enemy disabled, brought them closer to survival. Mara clenched her fists, feeling the weight of command. She thought of the children aboard, the engineers, the soldiers, the families, all those who had placed their trust in her. "We cannot falter," she whispered. "We cannot give them the satisfaction of seeing us break." In the midst of loss, there were sparks of hope. Engineers patched critical systems in record time. Pilots returned from the brink of destruction to strike again. Soldiers, though weary, held their lines against alien advances. Humanity's resilience was visible in every action, in every heartbeat, in every refusal to surrender. Lieutenant Jarek approached Mara once more, eyes filled with exhaustion and pride. "They underestimated us," he said quietly. "They thought fear would make us run. But look at us, we're still standing." Mara's eyes shone with tears she refused to let fall. "Yes," she said firmly. "We're not just standing, we're fighting. And every move we make is a message they will never forget. Humanity does not break even when the cost is high. Humanity survives, and we fight back stronger than ever. As the battle raged on, the human fleet coordinated attacks with devastating precision. Alien ships that had once seemed unstoppable faltered, their formations breaking under relentless assault. The Deathworlders had learned that humanity was not prey. They were hunters, defenders, and warriors united by hope, courage, and the unyielding will to survive. For every loss, there was a victory. For every fallen crew member, there was another who carried their spirit forward. Humanity's strength was not measured by the absence of fear, but by the courage to move forward despite it. And in the eyes of the Aurelia's crew and Earth's fleet, that courage shone brighter than any weapon, brighter than any star. Captain Mara Lynn stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the battle unfolding in the void. The stars were alight with fire, metal, and determination. The Deathworlders had come to hunt, but humans had turned the fight into a storm of courage and resolve. "We fight," she whispered, her voice steady, "because we must. We fight for our people, for our home, and for the promise that humanity will not be broken. No matter the cost, we survive. No matter the darkness, we endure, and we will win." The void, once a place of fear and isolation, now blazed with human defiance. Humanity had suffered, yes, but in their endurance, their courage, and their unbroken spirit, they had become unstoppable. The Deathworlders would learn that every human life was worth fighting for, and that fighting for humanity was a force the galaxy could never extinguish. The battle raged on, but now the humans were no longer on the defensive. Every maneuver, every strike, and every command was precise, calculated, and devastating. Captain Mara Lynn watched from the bridge of the Aurelia as Earth's fleet shifted like a living organism, surrounding the Deathworlders' forces and cutting off escape routes. Humanity was no longer just surviving. They were taking control. Lieutenant Jarek led a squadron in a daring assault on a Deathworlder battleship, weaving through enemy fire with unmatched skill. "For the Aurelia. For Earth," he shouted, his voice filled with the fire of determination. The squadron unleashed coordinated attacks on the enemy's weak points, causing massive explosions that shook the surrounding formation. Alien vessels that had once seemed invincible now faltered, their hulls riddled with precise human fire. On the Aurelia, Mara directed her crew with calm authority. Engineers rerouted power to weapons and shields, medics tended to the wounded with unwavering focus, and soldiers prepared for boarding actions. Humanity's endurance and creativity shone brighter than any weapon. The Deathworlders had never faced a species that could fight with intelligence, courage, and heart all at once. Cadet Lyra, her hands steady despite exhaustion, piloted a fighter through a hail of alien fire. She fired at a Deathworlder interceptor threatening a civilian transport, destroying it before it could strike. Every victory, no matter how small, was a spark of hope for the humans. Every explosion of an alien ship sent a message across the void. Humanity would not be crushed. The Deathworlders hesitated, their confidence shaken. They had expected fear, chaos, and retreat. Instead, they faced unity, strategy, and a ferocity born from generations of survival and injustice. Alien commanders recalculated, but it was too late. Humanity had learned their weaknesses and exploited them mercilessly. On the bridge of the Aurelia, Mara clenched her fists. "Push them back," she commanded. "Every ship, every fighter, every soldier, strike hard, strike together. Show them humanity is not prey. Humanity fights." The humans coordinated strikes across the battlefield, targeting capital ships and supply lines. Earth's fleet unleashed experimental weapons, devastating alien formations. Fighters darted through the chaos with deadly precision, taking out enemy craft that had once terrified the survivors of the Aurelia. The Deathworlders, for the first time, began retreating in fear. Amid the chaos, Mara led a daring boarding mission aboard the largest Deathworlder capital ship. Engineers rigged explosive charges as soldiers secured key areas. Every step was dangerous. Every moment could be the last. Yet each human moved with courage that defied fear. They were fighting not just for survival, but for revenge, for justice, and for the countless lives the Deathworlders had destroyed. Explosions rocked the alien vessel as the charges detonated. The ship shuddered and erupted in flames, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Humanity had struck a decisive blow. The Deathworlders' formation faltered, and their fleet began a full retreat. The hunters had become the hunted. Mara stood on the bridge of the Aurelia, her eyes reflecting the fire of distant explosions. Around her the crew cheered, though their voices were tinged with exhaustion. Humanity had survived, but more than survival. They had proven themselves to the galaxy. They had turned despair into victory, fear into courage, and isolation into unity. Lieutenant Jarek returned from his squadron, battered, but smiling. "They're falling back," he reported. "We did it, Captain. We really did it." Mara nodded, a mixture of relief and pride washing over her. "Yes," she said softly. "We did it. But remember this, we fight to protect, to survive, and to never let the darkness overwhelm us again." Humanity has learned a lesson today. We are stronger than any hunter, smarter than any predator, and braver than any fear the galaxy can send. Cadet Lyra, exhausted but alive, watched the retreating Deathworlder fleet. We can do this," she whispered. Her voice carried the awe and disbelief of a generation that had been hunted, abandoned, and left to survive against impossible odds. Yet now she understood. Humans were unstoppable when united, when determined, and when fighting for each other. The void, once a place of fear and shadows, now blazed with human strength. Fires of battle slowly faded, leaving behind a trail of broken enemy ships and survivors clinging to life. The Aurelia's crew and Earth's fleet had turned the tide. The Deathworlders, who had once darkened the stars with their presence, now fled into the distance, weakened, humiliated, and forever marked by humanity's fury. Mara Lynn took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the horizon. The stars no longer felt oppressive. Instead, they seemed alive with possibility. Humanity had survived the impossible, fought back against fear itself, and reclaimed its place among the stars. "We've done more than survive," Mara said quietly, her voice steady. "We've shown the galaxy what humans are capable of. They will never forget the day humanity refused to die quietly. They will never forget the day the humans fought back and won." The crew of the Aurelia looked out at the stars, battered but unbroken. The Earth fleet regrouped, tending to the wounded and preparing for whatever came next. Humanity had learned a vital truth. No matter the danger, no matter the enemy, when humans fight together, they are unstoppable. The void, once silent and foreboding, now hummed with the spirit of survivors, warriors, and heroes. Humanity had not only survived, they had triumphed. And as the stars shone brightly above, Captain Mara Lynn allowed herself a small, proud smile. The SOS had been answered. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never forget the day humans refused to be hunted. The stars were bright again, though streaked with smoke and debris from the long battle. The Deathworlders, once a terrifying presence that darkened entire star systems, were retreating. Their fleet, shattered and humiliated, fled across the void, leaving behind a trail of destruction and silence. Humanity had endured, fought, and now stood victorious. Captain Mara Lynn stood on the bridge of the Aurelia, her gaze sweeping over the horizon where the Earth fleet hovered like guardians. Around her, the crew moved quietly, tending to the wounded, repairing systems, and assisting survivors. There was exhaustion in every face, but also pride. Deep, unshakable pride. They had survived the impossible and had shown the galaxy the true strength of humanity. Lieutenant Jarek approached, his uniform scorched, hands trembling slightly. "It's over," he said softly. "They're gone." "For now," Mara nodded, her chest heavy with emotion. "Yes, it's over, but not forgotten. Humanity fought. Humanity endured. And humanity will not forget what we protect or what we defend." Below them, crews rescued the last of the surviving colonists. Families reunited after decades of isolation, their tears shining brighter than any star. Children ran into the arms of their parents. Engineers embraced soldiers who had protected them, and old veterans smiled through their fatigue. The SOS had been answered, and Earth had delivered humanity's vengeance and protection. Cadet Lyra, exhausted but beaming, helped guide a transport ship filled with survivors to safety. We did it, she whispered to herself. Her voice carried awe, relief, and disbelief all at once. She had been a child when the Deathworlders attacked, raised in fear, and yet now she had seen humans rise, fight, and win. Humanity was unstoppable when united. Captain Mara turned back to the viewports, watching the stars, now calm and still. The once darkened expanse no longer seemed empty or threatening. It was filled with hope, courage, and the triumph of the human spirit. She felt a surge of emotion that made her eyes sting with tears. They had endured fear, loss, and unimaginable danger, and they had prevailed. Earth's fleet regrouped, sending messages of support, medical aid, and supplies to the survivors. Engineers repaired damaged ships, soldiers secured the colony, and medical teams worked tirelessly. Humanity had come not only to rescue, but to rebuild, to restore, and to declare that no one would ever be abandoned again. Mara's voice was quiet, but every word carried the weight of generations of humans who had fought and suffered. We are stronger than fear. We are braver than any hunter, and we are never, ever alone. Humanity survives, and humanity protects its own. In the distance, the retreating Deathworlder ships shimmered faintly. Their confidence had been broken, their invincibility shattered. For the first time, they understood that humans could not be intimidated, that humans could not be hunted into submission, and that when humanity fought together, it was an unstoppable force. Lieutenant Jarek placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. They'll remember this, he said softly. Every time they look at the stars, they'll remember humanity's strength. Mara nodded. Yes, and we will continue to grow stronger. We fight for today, but we also fight for tomorrow. For the survivors, for the children, for every human who has ever faced fear and refused to bow to it. The crew of the Aurelia and the Earth fleet watched the stars, a mix of silence and quiet celebration filling the void. Tears and smiles mingled freely as humans who had once been hunted now stood victorious. Humanity had survived the darkness, and their spirit shone brighter than any weapon, brighter than any star. Mara stepped forward to address her crew one final time. Today we've done more than survive. We've shown the galaxy that humans are not weak, not prey, and not to be underestimated. We've defended our own, and reminded the universe that humanity is a force that never gives up. Never forget this. Never doubt this. And never ever run from fear. We are humans, and we endure. As the stars sparkled above, the Aurelia's crew and the Earth fleet set their course back to the colony, helping survivors rebuild their lives. Humanity had triumphed, not just with weapons or strategy, but with courage, unity, and an unbreakable spirit. The SOS that had reached Earth had sparked a storm, and that storm had become a beacon for all humans across the stars. Captain Mara Lynn allowed herself a deep, steadying breath. The long years of fear and isolation were over. Humanity had arrived, and they had won. The Deathworlders would remember this day, the day humans refused to die quietly. But the humans themselves would remember it too, not for the battles, the loss, or the destruction, but for the courage, unity, and unbreakable spirit that had carried them through. The stars, once darkened by the threat of hunters, now gleamed with possibility. Humanity had survived, humanity had fought, and humanity had triumphed. The SOS had been answered, and in that answer, the galaxy had seen the true heart of humanity, unyielding, brave, and unstoppable. And so, the Aurelia sailed through the calm expanse, survivors safe, the Earth fleet at their side, and the universe forever marked by the roar of humans who refused to be prey. The stars would shine, but the memory of humanity's courage would shine brighter.